I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
All right, we are back with another episode of Philly Talk. Pretty crazy week in the NFL. The biggest thing of note was Josh Dobbs having to come in for the Vikings due to injury. And, this guy was saying, he didn't even know the names of his teammates, just barely getting traded to Minnesota from Arizona and all that, and so, he barely knew the playbooks. They were having to relay information to him, while the game was going on, and yet he went out there and helped them get a win, a pretty crazy win at that. They beat the Falcons 31-28. Overall, pretty crazy game there. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins out in Germany, I believe it was. Dolphins not looking too hot, Don't know what's going on over there. Some pretty crazy things. The Ravens completely blew out the Seahawks 37-3. The Browns beat the Cardinals 27-0. The Texans and Bucks had a crazy game, 39-37. CJ Stroud absolutely popped off in that game, had that game-winning drive. It was absolutely incredible and crazy stuff to watch, Trying to remember any other big things. Daniel Jones, I think, went down with a season-ending injury. That's crazy to see. Now the Giants, after losing 30-6 to the Raiders, just gotta wonder what their future is. The Bengals beat the Bills. They're looking to recover from their slump at the start of the season. The Chargers beat the Jets, 27-6 on Monday night. I could have sworn there were some other injuries. Oh, I know Cam Akers from the Vikings went down. That sucks. I'm trying to remember if there was any other big news, but for the most part, it was just a pretty crazy week in the NFL, especially coming off of the trade deadline. But overall, some crazy stuff, man. But how about we talk about the Eagles? All right, so talking about the Eagles, obviously at home playing against the Dallas Cowboys, our hated rival. Starting off with the good, of course, just want to talk about that crazy touchdown from Kenneth Gainwell. That was absolutely insane. Jumping into the end zone, getting through all those guys was crazy. Devontae Smith had that beautiful touchdown in the corner of the end zone. That was amazing as well. I forget who caught the other. Oh, AJ got a touchdown as well. Overall, when it comes to the offense, they did, fairly good. Not necessarily the flashiest game from Jalen Hurts, but he did have 207 yards passing on the day with 2 touchdowns. He had 10 rushing attempts for 36 yards and a touchdown as well. DeAndre Swift had 43 yards on 18 attempts. Kenneth Gainwell had 22 yards and a touchdown, as I mentioned, on 3 attempts. DeAndre Swift was also kind of involved in the pass game. He had 2 catches for 31 yards. That was pretty cool. A.J. Brown, the streak finally comes to an end, but he still put up a great game for himself. 66 yards on 7 catches for 1 touchdown. Devontae Smith, 51 on 3 for 1 touchdown. Dallas Goedert got 50 as well on 3 catches. Overall, the offense looked pretty good, especially in that first half. They looked really good. Defensively, if you want to shout out any goods, it's the sack count. We sacked Dak 5 times. Brandon Graham, 1.5 sacks. Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick both had a sack each. And then the Kobe Dean, Jalen Carter, and Fletcher Cox, all 3 had half a sack. No sort of I don't think there was any turnovers. I know there was a forced fumble by Sidney Brown, but overall, if there's one thing to like from the defense, it was the sacks. And like I said, in the first half, the offense looked really good. I didn't so much like some of the play calling at times, but that's obviously we'll get into later. And then obviously the brotherly shove is just absolutely amazing. Just keeps, they just keep pushing through and they just keep being successful with it, and it just works to perfection every single time, man. I'm waiting for the day where like it doesn't work for us, because obviously that's the big one. It's like all these other teams aren't running it successfully. People are sort of waiting for our turn, But overall, there's not really a lot of good to talk about, Obviously happy with the win, but let's get into the bad just so we can elaborate more on some of this stuff. So, getting into the bad, the first thing is obviously just not impressed with the defense this game. Like, obviously the 5 sacks are good, especially compared to the fact that they only got 3 sacks on Jalen. But I just wasn't really impressed with the yardage they were giving up at times, both in the run game and in the pass game. I wasn't really impressed with our linebacking core and really like secondary as much. I mean, look at the box scores for Dallas. You let Dak throw. He threw 44 times. He only completed about 29 of those, which is still a good percentage, but he gets 374 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. You had Tony Pollard go for 51 yards. Then the big thing obviously was you let CeeDee Lamb go for 191 yards on 11 catches. You let Jake Ferguson go for 91 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Tolbert 49 yards and a touchdown. It's like that's not really the yardage you want to be giving up, especially when you look at compared to us the yardage they gave up. And then especially like late in the game. So when I was listening to this game, as it was happening on the radio, I'll never forget the thing that stuck out to me was that they mentioned how Nick Sirianni was saying, we got to play a clean game of football and all that. And, that was looking like it for the most part. You were seeing Dallas get these penalties, and I forget, I'm trying to look, like, what was the total? I forget where to look on Pro Football Reference when it comes to that stuff. But, like, they were getting some penalties at the very start and all that. And then, it was obviously more in comparison to ours. But then by the end of it, it was almost like the same. So Dallas on the day had 10 penalties for 83 yards. We had 10 for 98. And a lot of that came in that final quarter, especially, the time of possession was pretty even. We had it for 30 minutes. They had it for about 29, close to 30. So, it was pretty split evenly. But, yeah, they got a ton of penalties, like, in the start. And we just kept, shooting ourselves in the foot, getting a ton of penalties in that final quarter when we were trying to hold on to the lead. There was James Bradbury getting, I think it was like, pass interference, I think it was. Then there was, like, holding, unnecessary roughness, whatever. It was like, my goodness, what is this team doing? Like, you're trying to hold on to the lead. Are you purposely trying to throw this game? Like there was the roughing the passer penalty on Hassan Reddick. There was defensive pass interference on James Bradbury, and those two were during that final drive. Obviously, there we go. I forgot about this. Sidney Brown forced the fumble to ice out the game, and it was recovered by Reed Blankenship. Oh gosh, I'm trying to look in this final corner to James Bradbury, illegal contact. Not seeing a whole lot more. Hold on, I'm scrolling because there was so much that happened in that fourth quarter. Defensive holding on Eli Ricks. There's one on Dallas. Illegal contact, Eli Ricks again. What else is there? Kevin Byard, unnecessary roughness. And that was all like in the fourth quarter, And what is that? Look at that. That's 7 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, pass interference 36 yards, roughing the passer 15 yards. That's a ton of yardage to give up in a one-score game as you're in the fourth quarter, you know? I just was absolutely baffled by the defense and what they were doing. Speaking of fumbles, DeAndre Swift had 2 fumbles. Not great. You don't want to see that a lot. I did not like this team taking their foot off the gas once again into the second half. I mentioned it in the good. The offense looked good in the first half, and then in the second half, they didn't look so great. Now, obviously, they had their flashes, but it was very much like they were just dangling this game in front of Dallas, and you were just like, stop doing that, you know? And then the biggest bad, the thing that I just hate the most to see, we got injuries to Nakobe Dean and Dallas Goedert. Goddard might be out till like playoff time. Like he'll be lucky to come back in December if it's not anything super major. But yeah, we might not get him till playoff time. I don't remember what the injury was to Nakobe Dean, but he didn't go back out on the field as far as I remember, because I remember them mentioning it on the radio when they were calling it. And then of course, the biggest bad to come out of this game is all the penalties, solely because now you got Cowboy fans whining and complaining about certain penalties, certain no calls, this and that, and now you have both fan bases going back and forth, and it just gets super annoying. And you know, it's like, my goodness, man, like it's just so annoying when games turn into this whole debate about referees and penalties and all that, because there was the whole the Schumacher debate about whether he broke the plane or not, and you know, that ended up getting a touchdown taken away from Dallas. There was like all these different other penalties that people were saying. I don't know, man. You know, to me, if the Eagles lost this game, I wouldn't be blaming it on penalties. I can understand Dallas fan base being upset at certain calls maybe not going their way, but to me, I'm always going to be the type of guy that, like, you've seen it when it's either covering the Phillies or covering the Eagles. I'm never a guy to blame the refs and like a certain like penalties. Like you even saw when I was doing, or well, back when I did my coverage for the Super Bowl, and I was going over that, I didn't even, you know, like blame any of the penalties. You know, my first thing to blame was our own players for not doing, you know, their job in that game. And if we had lost this one, it would be the same thing, you know. Could there have been certain penalties called for the Eagles? Sure, but like if they had lost this game, once again, it goes towards their play in that fourth quarter where they were basically just trying to hand Dallas the game. You know, like I just cannot believe the way that defense played and the way the offense played at times. I mean, you know, they get the ball back, and I get it. They were with their backs to the end zone when that Schumacher thing happened, but it was like 2-yard rush up the middle, a pass incomplete, a pass for only 3 yards, and now you have to punt. You know, they get the ball back with the lead, rush for 2 yards, scramble up the middle for 5. They try and do a deep pass for AJ, doesn't work. They have to punt. Like, what is this offense doing? You know. And then there was the one where they were trying to hold on to the lead, trying to kill out the clock to ice the game. DeAndre Swift 2 yards, DeAndre Swift 1 yard, and then -1 yard where he fumbles the ball and almost loses it, you know, and it would have given him the ball back in like good territory, and it was just baffling to me, you know. But I don't want to focus much more on the defense and the bads of this game. We got the win. That's really all that matters. Let's talk about moving forward. So, moving forward, obviously the big thing is the Eagles are going into their bye week. Now, to many, this could be seen as a bad thing, solely because, you know, they have all this momentum. They're on a 3-game win streak. They're 8-1 as the record stands, and it could be seen as a bad thing because look at the upcoming schedule. You got the Chiefs coming out this bye week. You got the Bills right after. You got the Niners, the Cowboys again, the Seahawks, the Giants, and the Cardinals. You know, a bit of an easier schedule to end off, but you got to run through this gauntlet of these 5 teams, you know, where you got to face the Chiefs, you got to face the Bills, the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks, who, you know, they've always kind of struggled against. So it's 5 really great teams that it's going to be quite the test, quite the challenge. And again, man, you can't You can't play the way you did in this game against those teams. The coordinators really need to start stepping it up, man. It's looking ugly for them, you know. I don't want to speak too early, but like maybe like even like I don't know, depends on how far we go this season, but like you might want to start looking into some changes, man. Like I don't know, these coordinators just haven't been doing the best. And really, I just don't want to seem too like pessimistic, but you know, I am really glad to see this team win. It's just that I hate that a lot of times it's like it's really ugly, you know, like it's like these ugly wins where they're barely scraping out of it, or like, you know, the wins where they're playing down to the competition rather than above it. But overall, you know, I'm happy for the win. I'm obviously happy to be 8-1. I can tell you so many fan bases and would love their teams to be 8-1 and all that, you know. Overall though, you know, happy with the win. Happy to be 8-1. Rest up, boys, in the bye week, and can't wait to see what these next couple of games are going to look like. I hope they prove themselves. And just to close out, I just want to say first, this is obviously no hate towards this specific player, but I just want to ask Dallas fans, you know, is Mozzie Smith injured? I just want to know. He did play against the Rams, the Chargers, the Niners, like in the previous weeks. He had like a tackle last game against the Rams. The only reason I bring it up, and again, it's no hate to the guy, but I just bring it up because I'll never forget, you Cowboy fans. Weren't you guys the ones trying to say he was going to be better than Jalen Carter and that he was going to be the quarterback sneak stopper? Funny how that worked out for you guys this Sunday.